Okay, so this is my graphics and interactive evaluation presentation. So the intentions of this is to look back on my own work and discover what the strengths and weaknesses are from the production process. Hopefully from that then I can learn where I need to develop my skills and where I think I'm okay, just to be able to help make my future productions more better, basically. I also wanted to sort of explain what I would have done differently, what changes I made and why I've done them, basically just to explain how the whole thing came about. So the first bit I need to make sure was that what I was creating was meeting the client's needs. So they asked that it be something that would draw a different type of audience into the museum, maybe younger people, people from different sort of backgrounds. They also wanted us to try and make the intergenerational connection, so maybe if grandparents are bringing their children in, then they would have something they could share and reminisce about and teach the generations about. Also, they asked that it be set with the theme of joy to link to the cabinet. So basically we had to all try and work out something that brings joy to a lot of people that we can express physically and help them remember this feeling of joy and sort of bring it all back for them. When I actually researched it, sort of trying to think of an idea for this, the sweets idea sort of came out of nowhere. I'm not really sure where it came from, but to get in the idea of it, I asked a lot of people, like generally my parents and family, everyone's got a story about sweet shops. Everyone has a memory of going to a sweet shop thinking, I've got to choose what I want to do, the bright colours, the excitement, the mood, the atmosphere of everything. So I knew then that I needed to try and recreate as much of that as possible so that they still get the feeling of joy. So I need to look at see if it met the audience needs. When I was doing the research, I found that lots of different people obviously require different things from a museum. So younger people may need something that entertains them quickly because they have a shorter attention span, where older people may prefer things to read. But generally, overall, everyone that visits the museum requires two things, and that's to be entertained and to be informed. So I think my work had quite a good balance of that, because they gave me the information and it gave me the animation just as a little bit of fun. So when I was showing this to a few people, everyone sort of looked at it, started clicking on things, and then started having a conversation with people around them about their memories, things they used to do, what sweets they used to like with them, and things like that. Automatically it brought back all these memories for them. So I think it definitely hit the needs of the audience. Comparing my work to the similar and existing that I looked at during the research, I think it stacked up fairly well. This particular was actually a game on the BBC Schools website, and straight away you can see it's bright, colourful, easy to understand, which is similar to mine, and also I think it's quite simplistic. There's not a lot of stuff going on that they don't quite know what they're supposed to be clicking on and what they're supposed to be looking at. And it's also a very familiar layout. Like they chose a beach. Pretty much everyone knows what a beach is like: yellow sand, sea, simple. Mine, again, it's like you think, look straight away. It's shelves. It's got sweets on it, so you can tell straight away it's a sweet shop. It's not confusing or anything like that. So I think that one's pretty good. Comparing it to what was already in the podium, they had the touchscreen that sort of gave them the details saying choose a theme to find out more. So you go up to it. You're not standing there going, oh, I don't know what to do. It's telling you exactly what you need to click on, and then give you the options. So I chose to do the same sort of thing in mine, because to begin with, I didn't have this explore the sweet shop part, and showing people they were sort of a bit, oh, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to click or where am I supposed to start first. So giving them that telling them that lets them know they have the option to click on what they want. There's no start and end. It's what you want to click on, what your own personal choice. And I think that's quite, it helps them out with that bit. One of the other similar existing things I looked at was I looked at a CD-ROM interactive book, and it shows you the pages and it had all the text, but then you had lots of clickable things around the actual scene. I wanted to try and do that with mine, because lots of the things on these weren't actually anything to do with the story themselves. It was just you click on it and it was something fun that you didn't really expect, that was quite entertaining. So I tried to put the same idea into mine, particularly with I had my mouse. I wanted when you click on it, it jumped and sort of came alive. It's not really anything to do with the sweet shop, it wouldn't really happen, but it's there just for the entertainment factor. So feedback from the client, before we actually took it and set it up in the Novium, we showed it to the clients and asked them sort of their opinion, what they liked about it. And I had pretty good feedback straight away. They were like, oh, I like the look of that. It's attention grabbing. They said the only thing was because I'd actually chosen a subject that wasn't in the display itself, they felt there should be more to link it to the display. So the suggestion I got, which I went with, and I think it was a very good idea, was to actually change the background. So originally I had this pink here, which was nice, but it did distract a bit from the actual sweets. So what I did instead was I changed it to the yellow, which is the same as the information cards in the actual display. And I also changed the text a bit and made it a bit clearer, and that's how it came out. And I think it definitely looks a lot better, and it does give them that conscious link to the display. So the changes I made along the way. Originally I was going to have a lot more sweets on the shelves, but having thought about it, if I did that, they'd have to be a lot smaller, which would then give issues to people that had maybe visual impairments that had to sort of squint or get a bit closer to see it. So I think the size I chose mine actually was alright, and as there was less of them, it means I could focus more on the aspect of how they looked, and just got to focus on them a lot better. Originally I was actually not going to use photographs at all. I was going to make vectorized images because I thought it helped with the background, but I actually eventually decided that the photographs would be better because it balances out from the background, so not everything's really cartoony. So I figured if it all looked really cartoony and childlike, it would detract the younger children, but the older generations might thought, oh, it's aimed at kids, it's not for me, that just sort of bypass it. So having the photos, I think, really helped with that one. One of the other changes was, the major change was that I originally was planning on making my animations in After Effects. Just because it was obviously something I'd used quite a lot before, and I'd never really used Flash as an animation program before, but I actually found there was issues with exporting it. I made the animations, they were fine, but when you export from After Effects, it exported it into .swf, which Flash would only read as a movie. It wouldn't decompress it, deconstruct it, so you could use it as an actual animation. I only found this out when I actually looked at a book, which was the Creative Suite for Dummies, which told me that straight away as soon as I opened up the page. So then obviously I had the issue of trying to work out what I could do in my animation, and eventually came to the conclusion that it would be easier to make it inside Flash itself, because there would be no issues with exporting and re-importing because it's the same program. I've never actually used Flash for the animations, so I had to use a lot of tutorials and forums to help me learn how to do this and recreate what I wanted to make. It did take me a while, but I did do it, and I'm glad I did because it's a lot easier than After Effects. So the next part was testing. I did come across quite a few issues. The very first one I found straight away was audio. Originally I had some ambient music in the background, and which just sort of playing through, and when you clicked on the button, it took you to a different frame. which was fine, the music carried on, but when you click back to go back to the home screen, the music started playing again, so I ended up having levels of the same song over itself. I did spend quite a long time trying to find a solution to this, but unfortunately could not. Eventually I had to just find, I found that ActionScript had a code that would let me stop the sound, but the thing is when it went back to the home page, it stopped all of the sounds, there was nothing whatsoever, which didn't really help me anymore. So eventually I decided it would be better just to leave the background sound out altogether and just focus on having the sound effects for the actual animations. One of the other issues I had was with my animation looping. If this plays, when you clicked on it, yes, the animation played, and then it played again, and then it played again. And it kept playing until you went back, which was a bit confusing because the sound only played once, and people were looking at it like, oh, is it meant to do something else? Or it was a bit confusing for other people. The final issue I did testing was that I didn't actually test it on a Mac before we installed. Luckily, because I've made it in Flash, it worked fine, there were no issues. But I really should have tested it on lots of different platforms beforehand just to make sure that was fine, because if it wasn't, I might have had to go back and change things, and it would have had it made a lot more difficult just to install it. So audience feedback. So we had the private showing. I received lots of compliments about it. Everyone said that it was very attractive, a lot of people were drawn towards it. I only received one piece of criticism, that was the back button on the animation I had. People expect that when something like that, you click on it, you play the animation and reset, but they had to click back and then people got a bit confused, weren't sure what they were supposed to be doing. Obviously I had the back button on the information pages, so that was important because everyone reads at different speeds, so if that suddenly jumped back they might not finish reading, so that was fine, but it was just the animation. I really wish I'd done a lot more research to see if I could have fixed that issue, but unfortunately, having run out of time, I couldn't do that. So what I would have done differently, quite a lot of bits of this unfortunately. I would try to improve the usability, so spend a bit more time focusing on the animations, maybe perfecting them, making them a bit more interesting, doing a bit more. I would try and I think I probably would have done something with Flash to begin with, so I wouldn't have wasted the time with After Effects. Because I do think that where I chose to do with Flash at the last minute, they were a bit rushed and they weren't as brilliant as they could have been. I also lacked knowledge in Flash because I've never used it, so I think they were very basic where I could have practiced a bit more and made them a bit better, a bit more exciting. The other one I had was the information pages. When you clicked on the button, they just appeared. There was no animation, nothing exciting about it. I think I probably could have done, made it grow, made it twist, something like that. Something that makes it a bit more exciting than just being there. I also wanted to try and make more things interactive. Like when I compared it back to the book I had before, pretty much everything on that screen was interactive. Whereas with mine, I think there were 10 things that were interactive. This one particular page of the book, there were 22 interactions. Not necessarily linked to the story, but just things they could click on. So I think it would have been nice to maybe have made more things interactive. And if this plays this one, you just click on the trash button, it flashes. Just a simple little thing like that. I could have done that with my sweets at the top, just having flashing, maybe say sweets, something like that. Just a bit more for the entertainment factor. I also think that because I'd chosen a subject that wasn't an item on display in the cabinet, it did distance it compared to other people's work. And I think if I hadn't done it again, I would probably choose something that was in the display and focus on that instead of the sweets. Okay, one of my original ideas as well was to actually have more than one page. Mine was just a static page, if you click on anything like that. I wanted to actually have like maybe scrolling or clicking or turn the page or something to have lots of different pages, because that then would have allowed me to have the more sweets and the more interactivity. But again, I think that was an issue with lacking knowledge of Flash and not knowing how to do that. And just, I suppose time as well was an issue there. I really would have liked to try and fix my audio issues that I had. I did spend the last bit of time I had trying to fix that, but unfortunately couldn't. Maybe there was a bit of like I could have done, maybe had a button in the corner that started the audio and stopped the audio, something like that, just so it's still there. Because I really think it did help with the ambience of the get the feel of the shop that I kind of probably bypassed. And I think something that really let me down as well was the amount of research I did. I think I probably could have expanded it further, looked at more interactive games, books, things like that, and getting more ideas. I think mine was quite minimal, and I really will be trying when I do future projects to do a lot more research, because not only does it help me understand what works and what doesn't work, it also gives me ideas and inspiration and things like that. So what I've learned, well, I've definitely developed my skills in Flash, having never used a program before. I think I know a fair amount now, and I've learned that with a bit of fiddling you can get it to do what you want it to do, even if it does take the time. But I think it really helps, and having access to tutorials, friends that know a lot more about it, and books as well really would help develop these skills even further to make my projects even better in the future. Particularly with the animations, like I said, I've only used After Effects before. Flash is quite simple, and I think I'd probably take my animations a lot further if I'd done that before. And as I said before, research, I definitely think that expanding my research, looking at other things would have made my work a lot better and given me more ideas. Any questions?
Do you feel sweets as kind of links to that kind of, there's like a high, kind of, I don't know how to say it, there's a big issue about giving children sweets nowadays, like obesity, not giving them. Do you think your site might have promoted?
Ethical issue. It's an interesting legal and ethical issue.
Right.
That is, yeah, I hadn't considered that. Yes, you do have a point, but I think it's more to the fact that it's reminiscing, not because there'll be more people that have been through the younger stage of having the sweets when they're younger, not necessarily the ones now, and just having the memories. But yes, I know, I didn't actually think that's a very good point.
Well, I think Terry's got a really good point. In is everything in moderation. I think is important. You've got to have those bits of joy. We can't be completely anti sweets or anything like that. But there might have been a way to have a balanced argument, if you like, in the same way that you would an essay.
Yeah, that's something I definitely haven't thought of with the chat.
It's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Really, really valuable, actually. I think everybody could take that kind of forward. Even television, you can get too much of television. And you could have a little kind of discussion at the end, going, "But children, remember to go out and play in the fresh air." Please English.
It would be no. Yeah.
Go on. Any other questions?
In terms of expanding your content, when you wanted to, you said you'd have scrolling and stuff. What would it be scrolling to, or how would you have expanded?
I wanted to have it scrolling to different shelves, because obviously generally you go to a shop, it's not just the one shelf, there's like this display, that display, that display. I'd like it to have gone, maybe transferred from this set of shelves to
So more like,
desk,
so it would be like maybe a horizontal long scroll. Okay.
Yeah, something like that, which obviously then allowed me to have more sweets without compromising the size of them.
Would you have had the same functions in there, so just animations and
I would
different,
have liked
would you
to
have
have
added something
put
else?
maybe some video in it as well, having had, they don't need to do it maybe, I think that would have been nice, maybe had a video of just like someone entering a sweet shop or the exterior of a sweet shop or something like that.
So I think it's really interesting, this discussion about information and animations. And automatically, when I saw the little bubbles coming out of those rainbow sweets, I can't remember what those ones are called. And I was just thinking, couldn't it be words that look kind of like bubbles? They're doing the same kind of action. You know, you're making the sweets seem kind of bubbly and fizzy and exciting, but the information could be connected with the animation.
Yeah.
So where you've got those strings, what are they? Those
Licorice.
shoestrings, the licorice shoestring things. I mean, if typography in words kind of went along them, so you're trying to combine the two, and I think that's really important in graphic design. Is always go back to the source. If the typography can look like the thing that you're talking about, then it doesn't look like a sterile, clinical piece of writing that Simon was talking about that he doesn't like. He doesn't want to see that. He wants to see the information in a different way, either heard or presented or shown. It's quite an interesting idea to take forward, I think. Any further questions, guys?
Any plans for like developing Flash in the future?
Yeah, I definitely would like to learn a bit more about it, because before it was one of those ones that I looked at and thought, yeah, a lot of programs run it, but I thought it looked really complicated. But once you get into it, it's just working out what does what, and like I said, a lot of it is just clicking around to find out how it does it. But I think I definitely would like to develop it in the future. I definitely want to try and use it again, see if I can develop my skills with that one.
So you mentioned research and testing as kind of big areas within the production process that you had changed. How structured was it, or how structured should it have been?
What, the research?
No, the production process.
I thought it was fairly structured. So I had a straight line of what I wanted to do, but I think I may have focused too much on making my animations and maybe not so much on. I focus more on those and not so much on the information pages, which I think is maybe why they lacked.
So how can you? I mean, it's really hard when you're doing it to have that kind of objective view.
Yeah.
How can you have an objective view of your production process?
I guess maybe when you've made part of it, get someone to check it, look over it, get another person's opinion of it, again to be obviously blatantly, brutally honest with what they think is right, and then take those in and try and adapt those as you're doing it. Because if you spend a lot of time making something and then at the end someone goes, well, you could have done this, you could have done this, it always feels a bit like hurtful because you've spent that time.
Yeah.
But if you get someone to sort of do that as you're creating it, it's not too bad as you can make the changes as you're going. So
you have to be slightly unemotional about
yes,
it.
It
is a profession. It's not. Do you know what I mean? It's not a personal thing. I'm just wondering about for you for scheduling. You know, actually go right. I know that I'm going to need whatever happens 2 days at the end for testing and cross-platform testing. Right, that goes into my production schedule.
Yeah, I did sway from my production schedule a fair amount. That may have been due to me changing my programming and animations or something like that, but I did find at the end I was rushing to finish it, and I think that probably affected the quality of my final products. So I think, yes, I probably would try and stick to a production schedule more in the future, just so nothing's rushed, because rushed work then turns out.
So overall in the whole production, what area of your production schedule got the most attention? At the detriment then to others?
I think probably building and putting everything together at once. I mean, I did spend a fair amount of time making my graphics and everything like that, but I didn't spend too much. But the main time was spent actually building it, linking all the buttons up and everything. That did take the time, purely because I hadn't used Flash before. I was still learning as I was doing it, and I think that took the bulk of the time up.
Okay. I have one more question. When you talked about photos versus illustration, you kind of made it sound like there was one kind of illustration. And and I still read comics. In my heart, I'm 12, but you know, I'm actually 36, and there's illustration for adults. And if you looked at magazines like Observer or The Independent, you know, really mature readers, they are full of illustrations. So I'm not sure that you can just automatically assume what audience that those kind of things are for. Yeah, there's illustration definitely catering for little kids like the one that you picked.
Yeah.
But there's print, you know, it's got that human touch, those textures. And if you were going for photography, then why not just photograph the things actually all together on a shelf instead of digitizing?
Because I quite like the different textures put together. I think it was more.
So the photos with the kind of computer-made shelf.
Yeah, I think it was more graphically appealing, I suppose, because you've got elements from sort of lots of different areas instead of just having it as one big photo. Where people might be in the museum, see the computer at the corner of their eye, they might think, oh, it's just a picture. Or if it was all like in the vector images, oh, it's just a game or something like that. I think having that helps attract people towards it as well. So, but yeah, I haven't really thought about what you meant about older comic things. So yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? That was really interesting. Thank you.